I want to bring up one more thing here real quick, and then we'll do a question and we'll do the watch long. Well, no, this week's Dark Side of the Ring is on Dr. D, David Schultz, and the slap heard round the world. And I am pretty sure I will be featured in this because I did quite extensive comments on David's background in wrestling. But a lot of people are going to be talking, because some people on Twitter, when the trailer was released this past week from Vice, they have not seen David Schultz slap John Stossel. This was brand new to them, to the younger wrestling fans that have not heard about this. Did you see some of them talking about it?
I did, and the clip I saw was actually, I believe it would be David's, because David's one of the only people I knew who had it, was the extended version where after he slaps him, Vince comes down the hall.
Yeah.
So it reveals that Vince was there while this whole thing was happening, which is one of the big revelations when it comes to that story for anyone who looks into it, is that it wasn't David just doing his own thing in the hallway away from everyone. No, Vince was right there. Fuji was right there.
Well, not only, Fuji was right there laughing his ass off and waiting for Schultz to slap him again, but Vince was there because, and by the way, is our talk with David Schultz up on the YouTube channel?
If it isn't, I'll make sure it is.
Well, we need to get it because we talked with him, what was it, maybe 2 years ago now, about the whole situation when his book came out. And we talked about the whole situation. What Vince McMahon had said was, David, that guy, the reporter's here, blast him, give it to him. Well, the interpretation, Vince claims that he meant a blast in a verbal way, because Schultz was a fucking hell of a promo and intimidating fucker, and Vince claimed afterwards he meant blast him verbally and really give it to him verbally. But Schultz told him, hey, my boss just said go fucking knock this motherfucker out if he gets out of line. And the video was part of the lawsuit, and David has a lot of those documents and et cetera. But anyway, we will get the original interview with Schultz up on our YouTube channel ASAP. But this program will be the first time that that's been brought up, and a documentary done on this whole thing since the original news reports, 35 years ago. But the reason I mentioned some of my comments, I haven't seen a cut of this, so I don't know what made it and what didn't. But to me, it was so hilarious because Vince McMahon didn't even realize what a perfect storm he had created. He said something, asked one of his wrestlers who was a big, intimidating looking, tough, badass guy to go at least intimidate a reporter. But even Vince didn't realize the sweet irony of the whole thing. A smart-ass Yankee reporter from New York was going to tell this badass from West Tennessee that wrestling was fake when this badass from West Tennessee was personally trained by Herb Welch, a shooter from the 30s. Schultz at that point was literally one of the last links to the pioneer days of the 30s and the old carnival shooters and the Welch family and the training guys to fucking work by stretching them in a barn before you smarten them up. So of anybody that would have taken the business seriously on that roster at that time, David Schultz was the one guy that was far on the extreme. And then you paired him off with his complete mirror image, this little Weasley reporter from New York who gets in his face and tells him he's a fake. Vince didn't even grip that irony. He was just using Schultz because he was a big badass looking guy. He didn't realize that Herb Welch had beat this motherfucker until he could not walk, until he had to crawl into his house every night when he'd come home to his wife while he was training him before he ever even smartened him up. And the whole fucking, the overriding policy, the one directive that David Schultz was given since the first day that he was smartened up after he'd had the shit kicked out of him and been stretched from asshole to appetite was never expose the business, never give the secrets away. So, and it was perfect. And I can't wait to see it because Schultz was a hero to me when it happened. He was a hero to a lot of the guys. Everybody popped because that was the pre-internet days. You you didn't know what had actually happened and what it looked like until you saw it on TV, and he slapped the bejesus out of Stossel. Stossel needed Omax after that.
And by the way, he didn't even ask him a question. He goes, I think it's fake.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the worst way to possibly put it to any wrestler, let alone David Schultz.
And, you know, that's another thing that when everybody said, well, Rousey was just working, Ronda Rousey was just working. Well, fuck you. Once you said fake fights, you're not working anymore. You're just an idiot. And people don't understand, especially now that nobody gives a shit and that all these fans are like, well, of course it's fake, silly fights and spandex. That's what it's supposed to be. Why would you ever take it seriously? Because it's, you know, we've talked about all the wrestlers and promoters that have fostered that environment to make it possible for fans to think that. But when this business first started, the wrestlers weren't fake wrestlers. They were really the best wrestlers in the world, and they figured out that they would work with each other to maximize their profits and minimize their injuries, but there was nothing fake about Frank Gotch and George Hackenschmidt, et cetera, Pasek and fucking Stecker and fucking She-Cat and whatever. They were working with each other to make money. Then when the Dano O'Mahoneys of the world and the fucking all of the attractions who were brought in, Jim Londos wasn't a wrestler. The real wrestlers looked down on those guys and sometimes double-crossed them for what they thought was the good of the business, but they still didn't expose the business itself. Even though they would privately look down on some of the actual fake wrestlers that were being put over, they knew it was because of business. And they still would never roll over on the business, would never expose their own business. And then when it gradually happened that there were more working wrestlers than there were real wrestlers in the wrestling business, it had still been ingrained that you're still fucking tough guys. You still got athletic backgrounds of some description, or you're tough enough to go through this. But the most important thing is we don't look down on each other because one guy's a shooter and one guy's not. But we never expose our business because that's our bread and butter. And that makes us look like a bunch of fucking fakes. And then the next step from that has been what we have today, which is everybody wants to be on reality television and thinks they're going to become a movie star, is just doing this for a hoot because they get to play with their friends. I prefer all those other fucking ways of looking at it before this one. But anyway, that's this week. Dark Side of the Ring, look for my face. It should be on there somewhere on Vice at 10 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday about David Schultz.